The coronavirus has obviously majorly affected the 2020 season. We're still unsure how many races there will be, if there will be a championship at all. One of the areas it could very well influence is the driver market. Of course, many contracts coming to an end at the end of 2020 with the anticipated rule changes of 2021. Of course, they have all been put back to 2022. It could potentially lead to a fair amount of inactivity over the winter period with not many seats changing, but who knows? Harry, Sam, who do you think is going? Do you think anyone will make the switch away now? We still have 1 year left of these current regulations. Do you think it will impact it at all?
I think. Sorry, Harry, you go for it. I started last time. You start this time.
Oh no, no. What I was going to say was not that they're in trouble, but there's a lot of drivers out there who have banked their contracts on 2021, and now they're in this position, and 2021 technically isn't happening with the new cars. I suspect there are a few. Obviously, there are greater things happening at the moment, but there must be a few worried drivers out there wondering what they're going to do. I'm thinking of Ricciardo in particular, actually, but Vettel as well, because, is he going to extend his career by an extra year just to see how the 2022 cars will be? And I've even seen rumours that they'll be pushed back to 2023, so that could cause chaos in the driving market. But yeah, there must be a few drivers out there who, particularly towards the top of the grid, who must be pondering their choices right now.
I think there are 3 drivers, especially in that top cluster, that are 100% safe regardless of contract expiry, regardless of rules changing or whatever goes on. I think Hamilton, Verstappen and Charles Leclerc could literally do whatever they wanted and they would still have the same drive that they request and demand for come the start of whenever we go racing again, when those contracts start to run out and we actually get ready to go. I think those guys can walk back into their teams without a single issue, job done. I think there's issues more likely for the chance of, say, Kimi Räikkönen. He's already the oldest driver by a long shot on the grid. He's the oldest driver I've ever seen in Formula One. The oldest man in the world. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him race again. If it takes maybe another 9 to 12 months to really get racing underway, we don't start maybe until the actual 2021 season, maybe Kimi doesn't return to the grid, which would be really sad because that means we've had Kimi's, the Bois King, his last ever race. And I would be devastated if we never got to see a send-off for Kimi. So there's that chance. There's also people that like Gio who haven't been brilliant. Grosjean haven't been brilliant. That are part of that Ferrari kind of long lineup where Schumacher, Schwartzman, and a few others, Ferrari Academy drivers, are going to be going, well, I want to drive now. Yeah, I didn't get to do my F2, but I've shown I'm good enough, and Ferrari need to look after its junior drivers much more than they need to look after people who they're supplying engines to. And I'm sure that they can kind of throw their weight around and get a couple of guys moved in if they really want it to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if the likes of Grosjean are also looking a little bit nervy out there. Yeah, so for me, all could change. I think we could see almost every seat change other than maybe those 3 that I mentioned right at the start.
Yeah, I think, as Harry, you rightfully say, so many of these contracts are tailored towards the end of 2020 with the view then to sort of play the field and see what's going on, who looks like they're going to be good going into a new era. And of course, the importance of that can't be understated. The most recent example of that, and one of the best examples of that, is Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton made his choice to go to Mercedes just before the hybrid era was coming in. But I mean, by that point, Mercedes were already fully geared for it. He made that decision, and look at the success that he's had as a result of this. And so the 2021 regulations being pushed back has put, I'd say, particularly Ricciardo, as you've already mentioned, it puts his intentions completely out of the window. I mean, he was set to, review after this season. Were Renault in the position he wanted them to be in? Was a Ferrari seat opening up? And now he essentially has to probably go back to Renault and say, hey, do you mind keeping me for 1 more year? And then basically just assessing again. Will they be compliant with that? I don't know. And it does open the door, I think, for a few teams who might want to take a risk. With so many contracts coming at the end of 2020, we were essentially heading into 2021 thinking that the grid would be properly mixed up in terms of personnel. We weren't sure who was going to be where, and that there would be quite a few teams who either had brand new lineups or who had one existing driver and then one brand new driver. What this does is it does give the opportunity, and I've got Haas in my mind as perhaps the number one team that could try this, is that they could well keep one of their drivers if they want to, but get the leg up on some of their midfield rivals by giving a younger driver the experience of 1 year in 2020, ready to then go into, in 2021, and then ready to go for it in 2022. If everyone else's sort of contracts are going to start in 2022, if that's how they're going to play it, there could be an advantage there for a midfield team to go and get someone to get that experience before anyone else.
That is an excellent point, Ben.
You reading that off a cue card?
Oh dear, it's going to be an interesting one. Do you think? Like, how? I wonder how it works with contracts as well. Like, do they just say we end up with a super season? Do the contracts just get extended because it's still technically the same season? That's probably a question for a lawyer rather than you and Sam. But
that's a very good question.
Yeah. Does anyone write this kind of thing into a contract? Is there someone watching the vid that can tell us? Who might have a little bit more experience in contract writing, maybe around sporting. It's a niche thing, but you never know. Is that something that gets brought in? Do they have extenuating circumstances? I know that in a tech company that I used to work for, they had contracts with brands that they work with, that if there were acts of God, that's the wording, put in inverted commas, that were to proceed and stop something from happening, there would be deviations that could be made. There were things that would happen that would allow them to make adjustments. So, I wonder if that goes into a driver's contract.
I wonder. Sorry, Ben.
I was going to say I'm not really sure whether the contracts stipulate like the 2020 Formula One Championship, or if they have actual dates attached to them, because depending on which one that is going to it entirely depends on that, as to whether someone would stick around for 2021 and contracted to race in 2021 in the instance of a super season.
I was going to say expand it out to teams as well, because what if they've got sponsorship deals? And let's look at McLaren. I know they've already said about they're still going to have Mercedes engines in 2021, but what if we do end up with a super season? Do they switch their engines halfway through the year? That'd be mad. Who knows?
I think we've raised more questions than we have answered in this.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Of course, but
yeah, we're leaving people with more confused faces than happy ones, which I feel actually sums us up.
We're very good at this, almost too good at this. Last point really on Sebastian Vettel and how it might affect him, because obviously his future is already a little bit under question, whether he wants to continue and also whether Ferrari want to continue with him. Harry, what's your instinct on how this will affect him? Will it cause an early retirement, an early move to another team? What do you reckon?
I still think he will. He'll stay for depending on what happens. I think he'll be intrigued to see. He'll be intrigued to see what the 2022 cards will be like. So I think he'll still. I mean, obviously, if Ferrari still want him, but I don't see why they get rid of him at this point. With the current circumstances. So yeah, I think he'll still be there by the time he gets to 2022. If for him, maybe it's just a pain. He probably wanted an extra year, perhaps, to have a try of these new cars, but he's going to have to wait, that's all.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think on this one?
Are we talking about Vettel?
Yeah.
Sorry, it cut out when you said the driver's name. I've had to guess via what's been said. It's really difficult. I want Vettel in the sport. I think he's a great advocate for the sport. I know a lot of people think that he's a bit washed out and maybe he's made a few mistakes. And yeah, he has made a few mistakes, but he's also one of the best Formula One drivers we've ever seen grace our sport. And that's always a shame to see someone like that go. So I want Vettel for as long as possible, even if he becomes a bit of a mentor or a development driver and he fights out in the midfield. I don't really care where he is. I think he deserves to be up the front. I still think he deserves that Ferrari seat. But if he has to drop back to Alpha and take Kimi's seat and help a young driver, maybe a Schwartzman or a Schumacher, I'm all for it. I'm more than happy to see that happen. So for me, as long as Vettel sticks around for at least a couple more years and I get to see him duel it out with someone, then that's enough for me. But I think he'll want to keep that Ferrari driver. I think Vettel's a little too proud. He's too much of a purist. If he likes the cars, we will see the return of 4-time world champ Vettel. If he doesn't like the cars, he'll stick it out for a year, maybe two at a push. He's got the credit to get a contract if he wants one, and then I think he'll part ways with the sport. But I'd like to just see him in the sport in any way I possibly can.
Yeah, I think the year, it's frustrating for Vettel. If there is no season this year, or if there's part of the season, I still think in terms of the regulations, he will stick around for 2022 now rather than 2021. An inconvenience for him for sure, but he's still got plenty of years left in Formula One if he wants them. So I think he just moves his timetable back, sees what the new cars are like. If he likes them, we might well, as you say, Sam, see the return of 4-time champ Sebastian Vettel. If he doesn't, he might still stick around in a slightly different capacity. But yeah, Vettel's definitely one of those drivers where we're most unsure about at the moment. But yeah, I think that's probably enough for this video now and how the driver transfer market might be affected. Sam, would you mind getting us out of here?
If you've enjoyed our little driver transfer chat and you'd like to express your views on what's going on, maybe you want to let us know who you'd love to see move somewhere else. It's a bit of a fantasy season once again. Get down in the comments, get involved. We're always down there. We'll respond to you. We'll have a chat. We love a good debate. Also, get over to us on Twitter at LBreaking. Again, get involved. We do a lot of stuff on there as well, polls and all sorts. Be great to have you. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, get along for the journey. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eads.
And remember, keep braking late.